Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Sally Howell, and I'm the director of the Center for Arab American Studies at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. And I'm a curator of the Halal Metropolis project. Halal Metropolis is a traveling exhibition and multimedia project that explores Muslim visibility in the sectors of politics, art, history, and culture in Metro Detroit. Thank you for joining us today for this virtual gallery talk, where we will do our part to get everybody in the mood for Ramadan this year. Today, I'm very happy to be speaking with three young activists and entrepreneurs who have each been influential in shaping the way Islamic holidays are celebrated and commemorated in Dearborn and Detroit. Before we start, I want to thank all of you for joining us. For those of you who are joining us live, either on Zoom or Facebook, please drop any questions you have into the Q&A box or the Facebook comments section, and we'll make sure to get to them during the talk. For those of you who are joining us on Zoom, I want to bring your attention to the live transcript button on the bottom of the screen. Please click it to see the closed captioning for this talk. So I also want to welcome the three of you. It's good to see you guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Very good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm really happy that we're finally doing this. We were supposed to have this conversation a full year ago. So
That's true.
So we're going to begin with Ramadan, which means we're going to begin with the illustrious chef Saleh Farhan. Chef Sal opened his first restaurant, The Art of Croissant, in the heart of Beirut at the young age of 21. 3 years later, he sold it and moved to the United States. After getting a degree in business administration and management, he worked at multiple restaurants in Metro Detroit. Chef Sal opened his first gourmet halal hot dog stand in Dearborn in 2013. And in 2015, he opened A1 Dogs and Burgers. Currently, he's working on building a kitchenware called Chef Sal. I became aware of Chef Sal's hot dog stand several years ago when friends started texting me from Warren Avenue in the middle of the night during Ramadan. Just so happy to see it there. So I think that it's fair to say with this small midnight or late night hot dog stand that you really transformed the possibilities for Ramadan in Dearborn. So welcome, Chef Sal.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And please tell us the story of this hot dog stand. What inspired you?
Well, I believe it started in 2011. I moved back to the US in 2011. Before that, I was in Lebanon. Outside our restaurant in Lebanon, I opened a restaurant, me and my father. Outside our restaurant, we bought a little hot dog cart. And most of the sales were from that hot dog cart. So I decided to open a hot dog stand when I moved back to Dearborn, when I moved back to the US. I came back in 2011. I worked at Chase Bank for a year or two, and then I bought the hot dog stand. After I bought it, I realized that there was no license in Dearborn for any food trucks or anything like that. So after like 7-8 months back and forth with the city of Dearborn, with the city hall, they approved me for a license at the end. And that's how it started. I opened in 2013, in summer 2013, and 2014 was my first Ramadan. And that's how it started. People started coming. People started noticing there's a hot dog stand in Dearborn. Word of mouth. Everybody started talking. Food bloggers started to come, and that's how it started, basically.
Well, tell me. I'm really curious because it just. I mean, I remember years ago, back in the 80s, or maybe even in the 90s, when it used to be that in Dearborn, people didn't eat suhoor or eat iftar outside the house. You know, they had
That's
iftar
true.
only at home. And then gradually the restaurant started offering like a buffet. And, you know,
True.
you saw people increasingly coming out of their houses for iftar. But this idea of having suhoor in the middle of the night, I'd like you to explain that and to really think that maybe some of the people who are watching this aren't Muslims, so they don't really understand why the food in the middle of the night thing. So would you explain that? Like who did you
Yes.
imagine coming to your cart?
Well, the thing is, I believe like the city, the Dearborn city, there's a lot of people just driving in the middle of the night in Ramadan, especially. So that's how it started. Like I wanted to serve those people in the middle of the night, and most of the restaurants, they closed also after 12. So like that's how I opened it at night. And honestly, because I was, I fast in Ramadan, so it was so hard for me to work during fasting, and it was such a, it was such a good idea, obviously, to open in suhoor time.
Well, there's just one more question I want to ask,
Go ahead,
because
of course.
so my understanding is that the people who were texting me were people who were like getting out of mosque. So they would go to for tarawih to a mosque and stuff like that, and then it would be really kind of late, and maybe they would have eaten iftar before they went to the mosque. But now is
Hmm.
the, so I think that to me, it's like the way I heard it described, it was really satisfying that crowd of people who were getting out of the mosque. Sort of something fun you could do or something social you could do between being at the mosque and going home.
Yes, yes, that's true. A lot of people, they used to come after the mosque. And honestly, also a lot of people, they just wanted to hang out in Ramadan. They wanted to just go somewhere and eat and be socialized and see people. And like how this is, I believe, like serving the community at night, it was something to open people's eyes that there is more opportunities for people to even do something in Ramadan instead of just closing their business or doing something like this.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you opened in 2014, that was your first year
Yes,
on Warren. So I noticed that in 2019, the city for the first time started running the lights, the traffic lights all night long.
the
Before
traffic
that,
lights.
before that, before that at midnight, the
Oh,
lights were
oh,
blinking, right?
that's
So,
I
but
never knew
after
that.
during Ramadan, yeah. So what was happening was that you basically had turned night into day in Dearborn. I mean, not just you, but all these entrepreneurs who
That's
followed
true.
you.
That's
So
true.
so give us a feeling for what happened on Warren, not last year because of the pandemic, but the year before. What Warren Avenue felt like in the middle of the night during Ramadan.
Yes. Of course, it was busy. It was busy. The streets, especially on Warren, um, because I believe in 2017, in 2016, I was still the only one that was serving in the middle of the night. And in 2017, people started opening stands and food trucks and all that. So, like the streets started to be busy, that's for sure. What happened also, we had to get like a police car to stand there because of the crowd and how like driving like got dangerous. Like young guys, they come out of the parking lot and they start playing with their cars. So yeah, definitely it was a very different experience for me.
Yeah, and I think this is part of why they started having a lot of traffic accidents on Warren.
Sure.
So that was part of why they turned the lights on. Well, so this leads me to Hassan Shami, who is the sort of the person who took Ramadan celebrations to the next level, especially in terms of food culture in Dearborn. So Hassan Shami is a 32-year-old pharmacist by trade who owns and operates the popular Terry Melt restaurant in Dearborn Heights with his family. Shami's married to his best friend Lamis and is the father of two beautiful children, Leah and Ali. Most important to our conversation this evening, Haj Haas is the founder and principal organizer of the Ramadan Suhoor Festival. Welcome, Hassan. Please tell us the story of the Ramadan Suhoor Festival.
Thank you, Sally. I'm here to pay homage to Chef Sale because people don't know. Many people know about the Food Festival, but like Chef Sale was saying, back in 2013, 2014, he was the first vendor. So before everyone started becoming vendors on the streets in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, your gas station corners, your plaza corners, there was Chef Sale, a hot dog stand that was all over Instagram and Snapchat, back when I was still in pharmacy school. So back before I even thought anything about a festival. So Chef Sale, he really made a big impact on the community.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
where I stepped in is that years later, 2017, 2018, you drive up and down Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, and there's vendors everywhere, which is a good thing. And also, I thought it can also be a little negative because it's in the middle of the night. They're near residential neighborhoods. People are trying to sleep. So, but it showed that there was a need for this. There was a need and a want. People want to hang out. People want to go out for food. It was still the weather was still beautiful, still in the summer. So I did where I met you, Sally, was the first pop-up food festival. So we ran a test run in one of my buddies' parking lots on Ford Road. We got about 12 vendors, and I advertised it for about 20, maybe 15, 20 days, saying, hey, Hood Food Festival. We had some tents come in, and we posted up for 2 nights, and it was huge. I mean, it was something.
It was a mob scene.
It was something I didn't expect. So after 2018, the rest of the year to Ramadan 2019, I started preparing for a few months. Ali Sayed, the founder and CEO of Hype, donated me his property, free of charge, basically, to use his property for the Suhoor Festival. And so what my intent was, so there's a few things. Number one, people want to do something in the middle of the night. So let's take the crowds away from the corners, away from the streets, away from residential neighborhoods. Let's centralize it. If we're going to centralize it, let's bring the Ramadan spirit. So we created it with the lights, and we put the festive lights all over the place. We put some nice Quran and Hadith posters everywhere to remind people of the holy month of Ramadan. We had a Quranic reciter, people reciting supplications, dua, and also just Ramadan music. And we want to create that nice vibe that us first generation Americans have never experienced in the Middle East. So you go to the souk in the Middle East in the middle of the night, they have the people selling food and people out and about in the middle of the night. So I was trying to recreate that. And then I really didn't know what to expect, but as you guys know, it definitely was a blessing from God. We had people come out from all over the country. I mean, I met people from California, from Chicago. There was families from Chicago coming every single weekend. Toronto, Windsor, New York. It was amazing. And till this day, I keep getting text DMs and Instagram, my inbox, asking about the Suhoor Fest. So that's really where it was. We canceled it last year due to COVID, and this year I canceled it again because it's just too much of a responsibility. I do not want to be held accountable for creating a spread. We're not there yet, a few more months, hopefully more people get vaccinated, we'll probably get there, but I don't think it's the time to have a festival. But we definitely have plans in the future for indoor activities in the festival. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It was just, it was definitely a blessing from God of how everything came together, how the community supported. In Dearborn, if you, when you put something together and it's with good intentions, the people are going to support. We have we're blessed to be in this community. So I have people from Pennsylvania, San Diego, and Chicago that are constantly reaching out to do the Ramadan Suhoor Festival in their communities as well. So we don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it shows you how many other Muslim communities were amazed by what we did.
Yeah, I think everybody's hungry for something like this. I think it made a difference that these traditions kind of came into being when Ramadan was in the summertime. The days are longer, people are breaking the fast a little later, so you do get pushed into the night a little bit more in your celebrating or commemorating the holiday. I do sort of wonder what's going to happen as we get into winter and the days are shorter, and it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, the excitement, the enthusiasm, the positive vibe that you got from the crowd. I mean, everybody was just so happy to be there. People were all talking. People are just like one big family. Everybody's just so happy to see everybody else. It's just a beautiful place.
We were able to celebrate religious diversity. There's a lot of non-Muslims there, so they were introduced to what we do. And most importantly, there's a lot of ethnic diversity, a lot of non-Arab Muslims, the Black Muslim community, the Afghani, the Pakistani community that were coming out. And to me, Dearborn it's a powerhouse. We have a lot to offer. So it was like us lending out our hand and inviting everyone down to Dearborn. And it was just amazing. The diversity and the unity at the festival was something, I mean, myself and all the vendors, we were like high off life during this festival.
I think the whole community was high off of life because they just love this festival so much. Well, so now I'm going to turn to Hassan Bazoun. Last but not least, and it's a slight change of subject because Hassan is responsible for innovating in a very different holiday tradition. Hassan immigrated to Lebanon, or from Lebanon, in 2000 with his family. He came directly to East Dearborn. He's an alumnus, I think, of my campus. Are you, Hassan? Or did you go to Ann Arbor?
No, yeah, Dearborn.
Yes, Dearborn alum. Yep. I always appreciate encountering an alum. He got a bachelor's degree in communication, and in 2014, he founded Artistic Element Design Group. AEDG specializes in logo development, printing solutions, and video production. Bazoun currently resides in Dearborn Heights with his wife and 2 kids, And during his free time, he maintains his ties to the local community by volunteering for the Boy Scouts of America and the Ashura Project. So welcome to you, Hassan. And I'm really eager to hear you tell us about the Ashura Project, because I've been noticing for many years there's some like really great signage during the month of Ramadan, and I'm sorry, during the period of Ashura, and it's always like so dramatic, and it also gets you into the mood of Ashura, you know, the drama and the passion of the Ashura narrative. So tell us about the Ashura Project and how you got involved.
So I want to say maybe 2013 it was, or 2014. You know, Ashura in the Muslim community is it's a grand event, and it celebrates the tragic death of the Prophet's grandson, Imam Hussein. But it has a kind of like a higher significance because of the principles that Imam Hussein was killed for, right? So, and they're very like universally moral principles, aside from being, you know, strictly within an Islamic spectrum. And so, because and as you mentioned, you know, it's a very passionate, very emotionally driven event. So me and a group of guys, we would go and attend at the local mosques and the programs, but we were younger then, and we wanted more. Like, we wanted more celebration. We wanted a grander form of celebration. And so we got together. We started off with like a little kind of I guess like a little gathering. So after we would attend the major gathering at the mosque, we'd come together and, you know, we'd have like kind of an extended gathering and remember Imam Hussein further. And then after that, we'd go out and, you know, eat or something. I remember back then it was Al Basha was the spot, and there was Mandarin Cafe as well, right? So um, from there, we kind of sat and we said, hey, listen, this is an important event for the community. There's a lot of significance for it. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of messages that can also be distributed, and we should celebrate it on a grander scale. And so we got together and we're like, why don't we do a procession? And the idea was that a procession is taking the celebration from inside, or not the celebration, but the commemoration, really, from inside the walls of the mosque to the streets where the community comes together. It's much more interactive. It packs more of it makes a much bigger impression. It allows us to speak to people, and you know, people from other faiths, right, are gonna come and they're gonna ask us why, who is this guy, what are you guys doing? And so we said, let's do a procession, right? And it wasn't the first. The Ashura Project procession wasn't the first procession that was done in Dearborn. There are other brothers in the community that were doing something like that, but they would do it after 40 days of the main commemoration, and we were like, no, we got to do it like within a couple days, the weekend right after. And so we arranged the meeting with we applied for a permit, and then the officials from the city of Dearborn asked us, hey, we want to know more of what you guys are doing, so come in, let's talk. So we went, we sat with the mayor, the chief of police was there, and we told them what we're thinking, and they're like, well, we suggest that you make your route from Fortson down Ford Road to Ford Woods Park on Ford and in Greenfield.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought it was a good idea, so we got together, we started organizing it, and then a lot of people showed up, and it only grew year after year. And a lot of people showed up, and I remember there was a lot of people that said, you know, close friends, they said, hey, why are you doing this? You don't need this exposure. You know, you guys got a lie. And we said, why? You know, we live in a very diverse community. It's very welcoming. It's kind of a comfort zone. So why should we feel like we're not able to celebrate and express ourselves the way we want to? And so we moved on, and a lot of people came together. You know, a lot of people loved it. People would always look forward to it year after year. Now, unfortunately, last year, due to the unfortunate circumstances of COVID and the whole pandemic going on, that it wasn't possible to hold the procession. But what happened after that is that once the initial procession happened, we're like, hey, why don't we do a full on Ashura program? And we did, and people showed up, people liked it. Then we started off with a central program. Then we're like, no, we got to do English and Arabic, for the English speaking crowd that doesn't understand Arabic, but you also got to keep the Arabic because it's traditional to a lot of people within the community. And then we did a youth program. And then one day it dawned upon us that we're going out in the street, we're making this procession, we're putting together, a media campaign. Like you said, it could be very emotional, dramatic, and hyped up, right? But a lot of people might not really understand what this was about. So we rented a billboard, and we took a graphic and we put it on Ford Road. And there was, we've always had different graphics, but I remember one graphic in particular that a lot of people responded very positively to. It was a graphic where we had pictures of different people from different ethnicities and races and different ages as well. Maybe we had like 5 or 6 characters, I remember. And the title said, Hussein unites us.
Can I interrupt you just 1 second here?
Sure.
So I remember this campaign. I don't think I saw the billboard. If I'd seen the billboard, we would have it in the chat. We would drop an image of it in the chat, but we'll link it to this on Facebook later. But I remember the year that you had that slogan. I was doing a little bit of research on Warrendale and the Iraqi community there. And I was just sort of curious about what was going on for Ashura. And I went in all the different the majlises or Husseinias or Masajid, where these events were being held. And everywhere I went, the people who came up to me and greeted me with the expression, Hussein unites us all. And I was like, everybody was saying this. I was like, where does this slogan come from? I mean, in previous years, there had been other slogans that people had used, but this one was like really, every single person I spoke to shared this message with me. And I thought it was just fascinating that it had spread sort of, you're part of the Lebanese Muslim community, but it had spread throughout the Shia community. And everybody was really embracing this campaign and really obviously very proud of it. So.
Yeah, so it's you saying that right now gave me goosebumps. Actually, you asked an important question: where does it stem from? So, essentially, Islam in its its ideology is very inclusive and is big on the value of a human being is not determined by the external features, whatever they might be, but by who they are as a person, and people are created equally, and et cetera, et cetera. But there's significance to that because the battle that happened on the in Ashura, right? There were significant characters who stood with Imam Hussein that day, and they fought with him, they bled with him, and they died with him. And he shared, there's like traditions, a lot of traditions that say that he shared, in their pain and in their sorrow, and they shared with him. And so that's where this idea comes from. There's narrations that there was a Christian family with Imam Hussein. There were people from African descent. I believe there are some traditions that say that there might have been also someone from European descent with Imam Hussein. So that's where this idea of Hussein unites us comes from, because it's essentially what he did in service of humanity. That's what we take from it. And humanity doesn't stop at someone's language or race or ethnicity or religion. It's inclusive to everyone. And then, like, if you notice, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there's it's not a pilgrimage in the sense that it's a Hajj, but in the sense of the general understanding. It happens every year during the 40th, on the 40th day after the initial celebration. People go to the shrine of Imam Hussein in Iraq, and there are accounts of maybe 20, 30 million people going in that like 1 week period. And it's always very cool because WhatsApp videos start circulating, and you see a lot of people that come from India, a lot of Iraqi Christians, a lot of different religions and ethnicities that participate in that celebration, and they go dressed in their traditional religious attire, and they walk with the commemorators, and they actually enter the shrine, and and that's kind of like where this whole idea stems from.
Well, it's fascinating. It's fascinating that you're doing this. Well, so I think that each of you has talked a little bit about diversity, about the diversity of people who attend the Ashura Project events, the diversity of people who attend Sahur Fest, the diversity of crowds who gather on Warren Avenue. But I just am sort of wondering what any of you have to say about this diversity and how it creates new opportunity for, like the sharing of Ramadan traditions across cultural lines, or Ashura traditions across cultural lines.
Go ahead, Hassan. You can start.
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
like Hassan, go ahead.
Sally, add a little more detail to that question.
Well, so for example, I mean, yes, there was a Ashura procession that the Iraqi community held every year, and now with the Ashura Project, we have multiple processions. We have, there's opportunity for different people. The Lebanese look at what the Iraqis are doing, and they maybe feel inspired and imitate some of those things, and vice versa. If you drive around Dearborn or Dearborn Heights or Warrendale during Ashura, you don't have any doubt what time of year it is, because you see on the corner, you see these little signs that are put in place. Very often, I remember a few years ago, it was just a man on a horse with a flag, and there was no wording there, but if you saw that, you knew this is Karbala, this is Ashura. That's the time of the year. That's what this is commemorating. And so there are all these like subtle things around town that you see in Dearborn itself. But if you go to a place like Warrendale, then you see the red and black flags just all up and down the street, not just on the the religious buildings, but in the in the median in front of gas stations and stuff like that. And you see Ya Hussein all over town. So the fact that there are these multiple communities sort of living together, living side by side, however you want to describe it, enhances the feeling, it empowers somebody like you, Hassan, to think, okay, we're ready to take over Ford Road. We can march down Ford Road. Why not? This is our community too. And I think the same is true for Ramadan. When you've got people from all these different cultures, Dearborn has become a site of like consumption during Ramadan. It's like if you in the evening, if you're hanging out with your family, if you're young and maybe you don't want to, you didn't go to the mosque that night, and you don't, in the Middle East, there are all these TV programs that come on that are special for Ramadan, and there are special things, special ways that people have of celebrating. But here, those traditions aren't as robust. So what you guys are, you're creating that tradition. And because Dearborn is sort of like an anchor for the Muslim community in the area, then all these different Muslims from all these different backgrounds come and they participate, as you described, right? But I'm just wondering how all of the things they bring with them have to be transforming what the Lebanese community is doing as well.
Yeah, so I guess, so different cultures celebrate things a little differently, but it also helps normalize the way things are celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, in the Iraqi community, they got flags everywhere. So my house, when I moved to the west side of Dearborn, I don't have Muslim neighbors. I have one Muslim neighbor, but what did I do? I put two huge flags, one red, one black, with the intention of letting people know that my household for the next 10 days is commemorating Ashura, but also I wanted my neighbors to ask me questions. So you wouldn't really go through, you really wouldn't see these flags back in the day in Lebanese households. And maybe you see like a little thing, like a little poster or whatnot, but now you see a lot more people posting the flags. And we do give credit to the Iraqi community for being so bold about it. And maybe some people used to, they weren't too comfortable doing it, but now that they see others doing it, now they feel comfortable. So the way different cultures celebrate, it helps normalize things. And and influences others and inspires other families and cultures to do the same. And with Ramadan, Dearborn, like you said, is like a food hub now for consumption for suhoor. Like I know families that aren't from Michigan that spend the week here for suhoor and dinner. I mean, I speak to restaurant owners all over that, especially during the suhoor festival. There was so many people, like I said, that were coming from out of town, that they were having suhoor with us, but they were having iftar at local restaurants. And these local restaurant owners were calling me saying, "Got all these other people coming to Dearborn now for iftar, during this time." So there's a lot of influence by what us three are doing, and there's been and again, it's a community effort. We get so much support from everyone. So
Absolutely.
You want to add anything, Sal?
No, I agree 100% whatever Haj Hassan said. That's usually what happened. It's the support from the community and how everybody came together, and that's pretty much it. That's 100%.
And if you look at places like Gahwa House, this Yemeni coffee house that opened a few years ago, they also just had lines out the door during Ramadan. And now there are 3 Gahwa houses in Dearborn, So it's like people clearly see that there is a market for this, and all this enthusiasm, it only drives, like what you're saying, that Dearborn becomes a real food hub. So one of the people in our chat has asked a questions. So I've got sort of 2 questions that are related about this. One says, do any of you or do each of you have ambitions to take these ventures that you're doing outside of Dearborn somewhere? And then the second one is, do you guys have any anxiety about the idea that you might be commodifying Islam?
okay, so I want to speak to the commodity of it. So for those who don't know, I'm the founder and I actually host the festival. I have a few helpers. None of us take a profit. So the vendors sell their food. I know a lot of vendors donate money, but the host, my family, anything that's left over, we donate it to the community, to actual organizations within the community. And so this is a charity on behalf of me and my family. So God has blessed me with so much, and this is my way of giving back. So I haven't commodified it. And another thing is, the reason why the Suhoor Festival started in the first place is because it was happening all over the city on different corners. So the intent was to bring everybody together and to infuse the spirit of Ramadan before, not to talk negative on any corners or vendors, but at a point it was just a hangout. You were hanging out at night. We wanted to bring the community together and so. And as for the Ashura project, nothing about it is a commodity. You guys, there's no profits with that, right?
No. Well, there is some, some minor profits that are generated through like sales of like shirts and mugs and stuff like that. But everything goes directly to to funding the project, paying the expenses, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do want to add. Go ahead, Hassan.
As for Chef Sale, I mean, that's his occupation. He's a chef. I mean, so he has every right to, take it.
For me, thank you, Hassan. Yeah, for me, like it is a business, but at the same time, because we're opening in Ramadan, it's the holy month of Ramadan. We do at least 3 days. The 100% profits are going to charity, at least 3 days during the month. So, but at the end, it's a business. This is a season for us. And we're trying as much as we can to always do charity. And basically, like we do charity even more after Ramadan.
We were blessed enough. The Suhoor Festival was blessed enough to send 4 people to Hajj and
yes, that's amazing.
I actually wanted to speak to that point, Hassan, because I worked with Hassan when just doing some graphic work and some advertisement for the Suhoor Festival. And I remember he'd come to me and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm worried. I want this to still have a very important spiritual element. That the whole idea of putting together the Suhoor Festival is I want people to come together and to celebrate, but to have a spirit of the month of Ramadan." So he's like, "Make me a poster." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Make me a poster that says this is the Quran stamp." And he's like, "Make me 10 big posters, and on each one, I want you to put like a quote from the Quran or a tradition from the Prophet, etc." So I do recognize that um, aside, maybe sometimes if we look at it from the idea that, oh, this is commodification, it could be misunderstood. It's also possible that, hey, this is a community event that naturally is going to have expenses, and it should, there has to be a way to fund these types of events, right? um, but it's something that brings a positive vibe, right? And like, like Hassan said and Sal said, to some of the restaurant owners, this is their living. And to a lot of, I know quite a few businesses that participated in the school festival, and they donated, they even paid for Hajj trips. I know Hassan personally, he didn't do it for profit. So a lot of times things might look like they're being done just for the sake of, making it into a commodity, or for the sake of, monetary gain. But there's a lot that goes into it. And to be able to, sustain these types of events and put them together, and sometimes, you got to think ahead. So you can't just say, okay, well, we've collected enough expenses for this year. And this is something that, the brothers who kind of organize the nightly programs also at the Ashura project, they do. They say we can't just think, okay, we've collected our expenses for this year and now we're all set. Well, there's a plan for an event next year, and maybe next year there's going to be a wider program, or a bigger youth program, maybe a women's only program, etc. So these things have to always be taken into account, so that you have to, find a way to sustain them.
Well, I think also just another little element of this is just like, Chef Sal saw an opening on Warren Avenue and he filled that niche, right? And now he's got a big reputation. It benefited his business for being there, but it also enabled him to open another. But these businesses are mutually reinforcing, and a lot of the vendors who were at the Sahur Fest were young entrepreneurs, new businesses, places that nobody heard about. So, I mean, sure, they some of them made more money than others. Some of them, donated more to charity as a result of the money they made. But in a way, their participation in Sahur Fest augmented the work they were doing elsewhere. And so there's the religious element of the service that you're providing, but then there's also the larger, like, social and communal element of supporting young entrepreneurs in the community. And I mean, you can call that commodification, but you can also call it, community development. I mean, that's a very important part of the economy of Dearborn. So I think that's important. So this leads me to a question that we've got a couple of versions of this question in the Q&A. So I think a lot of people are curious about the ways in which these holiday traditions, the visibility of Ramadan now in Dearborn, the visibility of Ashura now in Dearborn, how is this changing the narrative about the Muslim community in the United States? How is it changing the narrative about Dearborn itself, about Muslims in Detroit? What do you guys think about that? Because we know we've been through a lot in the last 20 years. We've been through a lot in terms of the way Islam has been represented. So I want to hear about how you think these efforts you're doing, large and small, what are they changing?
I mean, I can speak for the Ramadan Suhoor Festival. I truly believe it put Ramadan and Islam in a positive light on national media outlets. I mean, Fox News, MSNBC, San Francisco Chronicles, all over. The Associated Press wrote this beautiful article, made a video, sent it out, and everyone was posting it. Where do you see that? And it showed. He said foodies and the foodies and foodies gather during Ramadan nights in Dearborn and Detroit festivals. So a lot of people to explore that side of Ramadan. People outside of Muslim communities and what they see in the media, they think of Islam as a harsh religion, an angry religion, and it really isn't. So I believe the Ramadan Suhoor Festival, and again, that was a blessing from God that it was able to be portrayed in the media in this light that, hey, look, these are Muslims that are putting together an event to celebrate religious diversity, to build bridges between communities, to unite. And I think it was a great thing.
Hassan, Salah, you want to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically it's whatever Hassan Shami said. But seriously, no, because he's the reason why he's speaking, because he has like our stand is like a small version of the Sahur festival, and basically is more, the more people they come, it's the more, the community gets more together. And like all over between the US, like we of course we did get a lot of people from all over the US, and a lot of people came from Canada, and they look at the Muslim community that we're just, like enjoying our Ramadan and having the food that we love in Ramadan, and just enjoying ourselves in Ramadan. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, Hassan?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because events that, and celebrations and big events always, raise questions, but most of the time, in my experience, it's always been that they raise questions that lead to conversation, and that conversation leads to understanding, right? So, we've had people that would come up and ask, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Or why are you all dressed in black? Do you support ISIS?" Right? And then you kind of, and this kind of create, like, at the beginning, it can come off as very, very offensive, right? Like, what are you saying? But then, you take the opportunity to educate and say, no, we're celebrating, a uh, a Muslim personality who, the reason why we wear black is to kind of demonstrate our sorrow and our grief, and this is, he stood for this and this, right? And then people will listen to you. A lot of times they won't accept it, they won't agree, but they'll at least there's a sense of understanding that happens, and a door for communication is open, and that's essential, and that really helps the community grow, um, because that's really the basis for everything. If you want to grow and if you want people to accept you, if you want to accept other people, you got to talk, right? So it creates this opportunity for discussion to happen, and it's very positive. I remember, just as a quick example, in one of the years, I forget the exact name of it, but it was like a big fact checking service. It might have been Snopes, but don't quote me on this. I'm not certain of it. But they reached out to the Ashura Project and they said, "Oh, here's a video circulating on YouTube, um, and it's being marketed as the Muslims in Dearborn are raising a picture with, God forbid, the head of Jesus Christ. It's beheaded, right?" And so they sent us the video. We took a look. Now, as Hassan said, different communities, they have different ways of celebrating these events, especially Ashura, right? So in some communities, it's common to show pictures that are graphic, but they are intended to show the extent of the tragedy, right? So it was actually an illustration of supposedly resembling the head of Imam Hussein, raised on a spear. But the way he's drawn traditionally, he looks very handsome, and it's almost very like Jesus-like looking.
He's got the
And
beard. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, right, the beard and the long hair,
Mhm.
beautiful face and the eyebrows and stuff. And so people were circulating this video saying, "Look what the Muslims in Dearborn are doing. They're walking around with pictures of Jesus had been severed." And so we explained to them where this kind of comes from, and they actually dispelled they fact checked it, and they dispelled the falsehood about it, right? But this kind of created an opportunity for us to explain, no, this is Ashura. This, some cultures celebrate in this way. This is a form of art expression. It has nothing to do with Jesus. We love Jesus, right? Et cetera, et cetera. But again, it created the opportunity to communicate.
Well, just again, to go back to Warren Avenue, a few years ago, I was on Warren, and there was a little place that was giving out gima during Ashura. And so I like turned around on a side street and I went down the street, and this was Halloween weekend. And on that side street, it's like a lot of the houses had orange and black crepe paper, and they had like a witch hanging from like a broom, riding a broom on the porch, or they had a skeleton. And then the other houses had red and black instead of orange and black. They had like red and black banners, and they had this picture of Imam Hussein. And some of the pictures were not the gorgeous pictures you're talking about, but they were kind of scary, you know, the kind of scarier pictures of Imam Hussein. And it was very, I definitely had cognitive dissonance. I was like, whoa, these two traditions are just merging in a way that is just unbelievable, only in Dearborn, you know. Yeah, so the other thing about this is that, I mean, I think the thing that really, one of the things that helped augment the message that you were talking about, Haj Hass, about the Suhoor Fest, is just a few years ago in Dearborn, there was this really large ethnic festival on Warren Avenue in the summer times every year, the East Dearborn Arab International Festival. And it was a huge festival. It drew huge crowds. They had carnival rides and food and music and dance. And that was an ethnic festival. And just something like completely mundane. Ethnic communities across America have these things, but because there are some people out there who see Islam as a threat to Americans, haters basically started coming to the festival and protesting. And you know, they're the same people who are accusing you of carrying, you know, having a picture of Jesus' head on a stick. These same people basically were carrying pigs' heads around the festival on sticks, you know, just trying to be offensive to the Muslim community, trying to provoke some sort of attack. And they were so persistent in the work that they did over so many years that eventually they had to shut down that festival because the city and the community could no longer afford to insure it. So to me, that's just like a tragedy. And out of this tragedy of people sort of preventing Arab Americans from being Americans, from being themselves, from living with their full liberty in America, you guys have in just in a completely different way, you've responded to that. You know, you've created new opportunity for people in the Arab American community and the Muslim community writ large to be itself. You know, not to Americanize Islam. That's not what you're doing. You're just making Islam. You're making Islam a part of America. And I think toward this end, I have one more question, and I'm, you know, please, for people in the audience, continue to send your questions. I hope that we've answered some of them maybe in a more general way than you were hoping for, but I hope you've answered some of them. But I want to just, you know, give you a chance to say just a few words, Hassan, about another Ramadan tradition that you innovated here in Dearborn. Hassan Shami.
You innovated here in Dearborn.
Well, you talk about it from your own perspective.
All right. We collaborated with the Halal Metropolis group and the MMCC, is the Ramadan Lights. So last year when the Ramadan Suhoor Festival we had to shut down for COVID-19, and that was a bummer. And we had this idea with Sally and her team to you know, put out some type of competition for those who we're trying to encourage more people, because a lot of people were starting to light their homes for Ramadan, to light up their homes. And then we, you know, divided the city, Dearborn Heights, into districts, and there were winners, and it was nice. It was amazing. It was during the time where a lot of people were down, a lot of people were feeling depressed over COVID. And so we would just want to, you know, lift people's spirits. And I mean, it was a good time. We had judges, some foodies, some popular personalities out in Dearborn going around. We had people nominating their homes, their families' homes, their neighbors' homes on a website portal we had. And we'd go out and we'd check them out. We'd take pictures. We posted them all over social media. So it was a really good time. And I actually hope with the years to come that more and more people will light up their home for Ramadan. Like I dream of a time where, you know, I drive my family through Dearborn and every home is lit up. I mean, it's beautiful. It's festive. Ramadan is a beautiful month. It's a month of God. It's a month of the heavens are open to us. So why not light it up and create it as festive as possible?
Yeah, and again, for those of you who don't know, in certain parts of East Dearborn, you really do drive down streets, and you know, you can see 70-80% of the houses are lit up with really, you know, sometimes really ornate, very festive, very happy decorations. And just as people are out in the market, you know, on Warren Avenue or at Suhoor Fest, you see people sitting on their porches, sitting in their garages, welcoming their neighbors. It's just a time of incredible sociability in the community. It's very friendly and welcoming and warm. And I'm not a Muslim. You don't have to be a Muslim to enjoy it, appreciate it, be included and welcomed in it. So, pardon me?
You're enjoying it more than us.
Okay, so we have, let me see, we have one more question I'm going to read. One aspect of your innovations are adapting traditions to the American context. For example, Chef Sal started selling hot dogs, not shawarma. or the crescent tree or the Ramadan house decorations. These are creating new traditions and norms. I'm just, this person is just wondering what the panelists think about this hybridity of traditions, and can it go too far? Can it become too American? So it's sort of the inverse of what I was just saying. What do you think about that?
Chef said, want to talk about your hot dogs over shawarmas?
Well, the reason why I started a hot dog, because I had a hot dog cart before, and like I'm not planning on doing like shawarmas or anything like that. And at the same time, it's um like you can't even get approved for a shawarma in the city of Dearborn to be served on the street, basically. Um, what else? What was the question again?
Just, do you think that this hybridity is going too far?
What do you, can you repeat that? What do you mean by that?
Um, can it go so far that that people forget about? I think the point here is that it becomes so American that it's not Islamic anymore. It's not Muslim anymore.
No, I don't think so. It doesn't matter what type of food you're serving. It's about that you're doing it in the holy month and you're serving the community. And it doesn't matter. Like, like in Ramadan, all the food stands that was serving in Ramadan, most of them are, Americanized food, not, shawarma and falafel, for example. This is what people like here. This is what the kids were born and raised on, eating hot dogs and burgers here. That's pretty much it.
As for the Ramadan trees, for becoming, so the question has some truth to it. There are lines that have to be drawn because you don't want to go too far. But in the same time, when you're speaking about American and Islam, one's a nationality, one's a religion. So Islamically, as long as you stay between halal, which is lawful, and stay away from haram, which is unlawful, that's the most.
100%.
So you're not gonna get a sin for putting up a beautiful tree that's shaped in the form of a hilal, a moon. And when we're raising our children in this community, they go to school and they see kids have Christmas trees, and the culture of America now during Christmas is like, it's like kids take it as an American culture, not as a Christian event. You want to have something for your children as well. So in my household, we do have a tree. We have an olive tree, and underneath the olive tree we have candles, and we have a Quran, and we have the 30 days of Ramadan on the wall. And my kids, put the stickers on the days, and they have a gift for each day. So there are ways to create a festive spirit within the household so your children enjoy it. You got to remember, this is also for your children. You want them to grow up with some type of attachment, with some type of festivity. So, but there is truth to the question of how far do you go? There's definitely lines that need to be drawn, and there are limits, but there is no right or wrong answer. As long as you're staying within the halal and haram, stay in the halal side.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have a question here that's sort of the inverse of this one. And this person is asking if you guys see what you're doing as a form of dawah.
As a form of
Dawah. Witness, for Islam.
Yeah, like inviting people to become Muslim.
Or to be better Muslims if they're Muslim.
Or to be better Muslims. So in that sense, to be better Muslims, then the Ashura Project initiatives are definitely that, primarily that. The whole idea is that we want to create this grand commemoration of Imam Hussein so that people learn from his principles and adopt them into their lifestyle. And, they emulate his character, which essentially is going to give you a better understanding of your faith. That's the whole idea. But on an external level, yeah, I think in some ways it could lead to that. But speaking from personal experience, there was never like an intention where, this program that the Ashura Project is going to do is dedicated primarily as the first target to invite people to Islam. It was more centered around, we have a community, and especially in the younger generation, there's a lack of understanding of who Imam Hussein is. So let's put together these types of events that, educate them more. And along the way, if the opportunity is the opportunity becomes available for us to teach people outside of the Muslim community about North Hussein, then that's not just good, but it's also celebrated, right? It's a opportunity that we would look forward to, because obviously that's something very good. But it wasn't the primary kind of like goal or mission behind the project.
Well, we've actually run out of time. I told you at the beginning the time would go really quickly because these
Yeah.
stories are so interesting. They're so fascinating. So I want to thank each of you for joining us this evening, and I want to thank the audience for joining us. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our sponsors who have sponsored the Halal Metropolis project from the beginning: the Knight Foundation, the Doris Duke Foundation, the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, the Michigan Council for the Humanities, and the Center for Arab American Studies at the U of M Dearborn. I want to thank each of you for joining us today and for contributing to such a robust conversation. For those of you who joined us live, thank you, and thank you for your questions. I hope we got to most of them. These videos are recorded and they'll be uploaded to Facebook and to YouTube, so please check it out if you couldn't stay for the duration of the event. Our Dearborn exhibit exists online as in a 3D version, and we're going to be opening the exhibit again in Ann Arbor at the very end of May, and in Detroit at the Scarab Club in July. So I'm hoping that people will come out again and check out the exhibit when it's available. And our next panel conversation will be April 1st, and it's a focus on local podcasters from the Muslim community in the area. So I wish you all safety and health as we try and turn a corner on the COVID pandemic. And I thank you all for joining us tonight. And I look forward to celebrating Ramadan, hopefully with all of you guys somehow.
Thank you so much.
Sally.
Salam alaikum.
Thank you, Salah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you to all the participants.
Thank you.